One of my favorite features of Fallout 4 is settlement building. Unfortunately, the in-game tutorial on settlements covers the basics, and that's about it. So today we'll cover how settlements actually work, and how to make them work even better. How to use settlements to make lots of caps, and how they will be absolutely essential to your success if you plan to play the game on survival difficulty. We're going to go through a lot of information here, so if you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll do my best to help. You'll find timestamps in the description below if you want to jump right to a particular topic. Some players may never interact with the settlement system, and in my opinion, that's a mistake. Sure, Minutemen Radiant quests may not be everyone's favorite.
A pack of ghouls has holed up near a settlement. They could use our help.
Not now, Garvey.
I'll mark it on your map.
The first step in any settlement is unlocking the workshop, and depending on the settlement, it may happen a few different ways. A few are as simple as walking up and activating the unclaimed workshop. When a workshop is located in an already established settlement, you can earn the right to use it through a short Radiant quest, usually taking out a nearby group harassing the settlement, or you could go the evil route and get rid of the existing population somehow. If a settlement is occupied by hostiles such as raiders, ghouls, or super mutants, you'll need to clear the area before you can build. And a few settlements are only available after completing specific missions. I'll put a full list of the base game settlements in the description below with the requirements for unlocking each of them. When you start building at a settlement, you'll need materials. One of the ways to get those materials is by scrapping the clutter. You can break down some old structures, furniture, trees, tires, and lots more. And as you're out exploring, you can find lots of junk around the world too. If you're serious about settlement building, a perk you should consider is the Scrapper perk. It requires an intelligence of 5. At rank 2, which you can unlock at level 23, you can mark certain materials as favorite. Then as you're exploring the world, any junk broken down into that material will be highlighted. For a standalone settlement, these materials need to be in your inventory or stored in the local workshop. Once you have multiple settlements, we can set up supply lines, but more on that in a bit. Many workshop items are available by default, but there are a few that are only available after finding copies of Picket Fences magazines. There are 5 of them scattered around the world. I'll put a list of their locations in the description below. Some items are faction specific as well. Let's say you're aligned with the Brotherhood of Steel, you'll be able to build a unique flag. But if you are no longer allied with a faction, items specific to that faction will be removed from the workshop menu. Let's talk about the user interface because it has everything you need to know about a settlement. Starting in the top left is your population. Note that the maximum population for a settlement is influenced by your charisma. The number of settlers you can have at each settlement is determined by a base of 10 plus your charisma. So if you have a charisma of 2, you'll only be able to have 12 settlers at any given settlement. If your charisma is 10, you'll be able to have up to 20 at each location. You can also modify your charisma with apparel and consumables, and the bonuses stack. Find a nice suit for +2 charisma, add a hat and glasses to net you another 2 points. Alcohol can add another, and don't forget the chems with Day Tripper adding 3, Excel adding 2, and Great Mentats giving you an incredible +5 to charisma. Grand total, 35 settlers. I think that's a theoretical max without cheats or mods, but let me know in the comments if I'm missing something. Next up is food. You want this number to be equal to or higher than your total population. Most crops generate half a unit of food per plant, but mute fruit generates 1 full unit of food per plant, making it one of the more efficient crops for managing space. Each settler assigned to crops can generate up to 6 food. For example, to feed a settlement of 20, you would need at least 20 mute fruit trees and 4 settlers farming them. But before you go all in on mute fruit, you may want to balance out your crop production a bit. Adhesive is a valuable material for weapon and armor mods, and it's craftable at a cooking station in the form of vegetable starch. To make it, you'll need mute fruit, corn, potato, and water. Harvesting crops or removing harvested crops from the workshop does not reduce the overall food count for your settlement, so help yourself and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Literally. Next on the list is water. Again, you'll want this number to be equal to or higher than the total population for a given settlement. Ideally, you'll want your water production as high as possible. Selling off excess water is a great way to make caps. You'll find that water in the workshop inventory. One of the best settlements for water production is Sanctuary. You can unlock it early, it's in a low-level area of the map, so easier to defend, and it's got easy access to water. Water is life. Water is caps. Don't sleep on this one. Up next is power, which you definitely need if you want to get into water production. Power's reach can be extended with wires. By default, these need line of sight to the next connection and can only cover a short distance. It's pretty easy to glitch out if you need to connect to a tricky spot though. Check out my video on settlement building tips and tricks, which shows a couple of wiring hacks, no mods required. When it comes to defense of a settlement, turrets are better than guard posts in my opinion. You need to assign a settler to guard posts. I find it more beneficial to assign settlers to farming crops to generate food, working at stores to increase the settlement's happiness, maybe even assigning them to scavenging stations to maintain a steady supply of materials with which you can further build your wasteland empire. The first turret you have access to is the standard machine gun turret, which provides 5 defense. A worthwhile upgrade is the heavy machine gun turret, which requires rank 1 of the gun nut perk. You'll need an intelligence of 3 for that one. The heavy machine gun turret provides 8 defense per unit. If you set them up at choke points, they should easily fend off most attacks on their own. In order for settlements to be satisfied with the defenses, the number needs to be equal to or greater than your food plus water. This ensures your settlers will be happy, but also reduces the frequency of attacks on that particular settlement. Beds are next on our list, and they follow a simple formula. Just make sure the number is at or above the population for a settlement, or the population you're aiming for. You can attract new settlers with a powered radio beacon, but if there aren't any spare beds, no new settlers will show up. Happiness is determined by everything we've talked about so far. For a settlement to be happy, they need enough food and water, a defense rating that is greater than those 2 resources combined, and they also need enough sheltered beds to sleep in. Make sure they have roofs if you want them to be happy. Higher happiness means higher food production, more junk from scavenging, faster recruitment of new settlers, and more caps available from stores. And speaking of stores, they're a decent way to bump up happiness, as well as a way to sell off the junk you don't need to make some extra caps or top off on supplies, aid, ammo, all right from your backyard. The better the store, the better the gear. There are 3 tiers of stores you can build in the workshop, but if you want to upgrade a store to level 4, you'll need to find one of the 8 unique NPCs in the world, some in specific locations, others are random encounters. Each focus on a particular store. A level 4 store will sell legendary gear, so definitely worth making room for one of these unique traders in your settlement. More details down in the description. Let's talk about supply lines for a minute. These are very powerful, but can also have a negative effect on happiness if you don't set things up right. In build mode, you can interact with settlers and assign them to jobs like farming, stores, or guard posts, but you can also choose supply lines. Assigning a settler to a supply line converts them to the title of provisioner, and they will trek back and forth between the current and selected settlement, allowing you to share resources between those settlements. If you have excess food or water at one location, a linked settlement will have access to those resources as well. You could have a settlement with 0 food linked to a farm with 40 food and still maintain a happy population of 20 at each. There's all kinds of ways you can set up supply lines. As long as everything is linked somehow, it shares resources, even raw materials in the workshop. You could set up in a ring. Some people go for realistic local routes. My favorite is the spoke and hub scenario, where each settlement is linked back to one main location. This can make your central settlement look busy with more foot traffic coming in and out. A nice touch if you're going for a bigger build. One caveat though. Failing to provide sufficient food and or water at a settlement or at one connected by a supply line can impose happiness caps on individual settlers that will drag down the settlement's average happiness. So make sure any settlements you link, you at least meet the basic needs of any settlers you have there. A quick note on perks. I've mentioned a few already. To recap, Scrapper is a great perk to help you find specific materials in the world. Gun Nut and Science allow you to build defensive turrets. Local Leader allows you to have stores at your settlements and set up supply lines. Strongback allows you to carry more weight and fast travel when over encumbered. Note that if you're playing on survival difficulty, you can't fast travel, but the first 2 ranks of Strongback increase your carry weight, and that is a huge help in survival, so still worth dipping a few points into. Settlements are essential for survival difficulty. You need to eat, drink, and sleep, all things you can do at a settlement. For the most part, you can't save outside of sleeping, so having a network of locations around the map is really useful to increase your chances of survival. But that's all for today. I'm sure there's something we didn't cover, so leave some tips and tricks of your own in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and have a better idea of how settlements work. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then though, this is Boo the Mouse, signing off.